This episode is brought to you by McAfee.
Finish your fantasy lineup?
No, but I'm joining this paid group chat with insider info.
Dude, seriously? Forward it to me. Security alert from McAfee. That group's as legit as that knockoff jersey you're wearing.
McAfee's scam detector is available in all McAfee plans for as little as $39.99 for your first year. Learn more at McAfee.com/online protection.
The McDonald's Snack Wrap is back. You brought it back. Ranch Snack Wrap. Spicy Snack Wrap. You broke the internet for a snack. Snack Wrap is back. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, 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 come on in.
So I want to save that for if I see them have 4 tight ends in the red zone next Wednesday, and then we're going to be yelling the entire postgame pod, win or lose. Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I'm Stephen Means. That's Stefan, Krajisnik, and that is Andrew Gillis. We talked with a bunch of different dudes on both sides of the ball on Monday. And so Tuesday, we're going to start with the offensive side, where we talked with Carson Hinzman, Julian Sayin, Max Klare, and Jeremiah Smith, and the offensive coordinator, Ryan Day. Because it is official, Ryan Day is calling plays for the college football playoff. Brian Hartline will still be around. He said that Brian Hartline will be working specifically with the wide receivers. Brian Hartline, of course, is going to be taking over as the new head coach at South Florida, and that's where he spent the bulk of last week trying to put his staff together, and they were trying to see if he would be able to balance both of those things. That ends up not being the case. So to make life easier, Ryan Day is going to take back over play calling. This will be the first, ironically enough, the last time he called plays was in the Cotton Bowl against Missouri, and that didn't go well, but that didn't go well for a bunch of different reasons, and that had nothing to do with football. That's that bucket. The other 2 big buckets of the day are Ryan Day did essentially confirm that Tegra Shabola will be missing time. He said he'll be out for a little while, be a while until he gets back. He didn't put a definite answer on how long he will be out, though. And so Gabe Van Sickle and Josh Padilla are going to continue to roll at right guard over the next 10 days. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they deploy that. That's bucket number 2. Bucket number 3 was Jeremiah Smith at a podium for 10 minutes. So, Stefan, which bucket would you like to start with?
Let's start with bucket number 1, because bucket number 1 directly impacts number 2 and 3 as well.
Okay. So let's start with the fact that Brian Hartline will not be calling plays. You're going to hear us do our breakdowns of Ohio State's offense versus Miami's defense and vice versa later this week. I think we hinted at these ideas, but we talked about at the time we were recording those, because we recorded them on Sunday. We had not had definitive answers, but we will have them by the time that pod is out. That's where we're at now. We have definitive answers on how this is going to go. What do you think of Ohio State and Ryan Day getting to this decision like immediately? They didn't mess around with it. They let last week play out the way it played out. And we're not going to Dallas and still wondering what's happening there. Ryan Day is publicly making it a point to say that he is going to be calling plays. It'll be a group effort in terms of how they put the game plan together, but in terms of who is actually calling plays, it'll be Ryan.
Yeah, I think that this was just a decision maybe that Ryan Day had even thought about before the Big Ten championship game, right? Like when all the signing day stuff had happened, and Chris Henry Jr. stuff kind of dragged a little bit, and Brian Hartline's announced as the next coach at South Florida, and maybe Ryan Day was like, I really wish he wasn't calling plays right now with everything he's having to balance, but hey, we got a game in 3 days and we can't really think about that. So let's just keep doing what we're doing and we'll figure it out after that. And I would imagine pretty quick after that, especially with Brian Hartline being in Tampa, they, identified that, hey, the best way to move forward is for him to, keep being a receivers coach, do what he, has got to do. But as it pertains to play calling, it's probably best to make a change. And I really don't disagree with it. Like Ryan Day had said Ryan Day started his answer with like, we, are so happy for Brian Hartline, and he's working really hard to do everything the right way, and it's not his fault that the calendar is this way. And I think he prefaced all that with the intent of being like, yeah, but he's not calling plays anymore. And I think there's a level of genuineness to that, of just Ryan Day understanding that this It just doesn't make sense to have Brian Hartline balance all these things. It's like I mentioned this in one of our videos. We're sitting in there as we're talking to these offensive players and as Ryan Day is talking to the media. And while we're having these press conferences, news breaks from Hayes Fawcett that USF's quarterback is entering the transfer portal. And it's like, I don't know, man. Brian Hartline, yeah, calling plays against Miami is important. Brian Hartline also needs a quarterback next year at South Florida. Like they just lost a really good player to the transfer portal, right? I think he had over 1,000 rushing yards and like over 3,000 passing yards or something like that. Like he's a really good player in that conference. And South Florida was almost a playoff team this year because of, some of the things that he did. Like there's a lot that Brian Hartline has to balance, and calling plays just doesn't seem to be, exactly the right thing. Because I would think the way Ryan Day talked about it also shows you like Brian Hartline has been around this offense for years now, right? Especially, this year's offense, he's been running it for, 4 or 5 months now it is. Could he show up on game day, grab a play sheet and be able to make the right call? Yeah, probably. But there's so much that goes into it in terms of preparation, right? Ryan Day wants to know when we get to 3rd and 2, which one of these X amount of plays are we calling? And it's got to be quick. And Ryan Day's done this thing now at a few press conferences in a row where he snaps and talks about things that need to be quick. And it's like, all right, like this dude's got this on his mind. Like he wants things to move. And that's where Brian Hartline's absence from the game planning side hurts, right? He can show up and go to the press box and call plays, but you need him there for the game planning. And it was interesting, even that first press conference post Indiana, where we asked Ryan Day kind of what Brian Hartline's schedule specifically looks like. And he talked about how Brian Hartline is not going to be in Columbus for that first week. And I think it wound up being more like a week and a half, 2 weeks. So you could tell right away, like they're about to start game planning with Brian Hartline not here. Like that is a massive thing for him to miss. And you could kind of tell after that there was probably going to be a change, and it was at least something Ryan Day had thought about. So I think it's the right move. I think just logistically, it does not make a lot of sense for someone to be gone for so much of your game planning, and then for him to show up with the play sheet in his hand, calling plays in the biggest game of your season, right? It's win or go home from here, from this point on. It seems like the most logical move. And I guess the good thing for Ohio State is that your backup play caller is one of the brighter offensive minds in recent college football history, and it's Ryan Day, right? The Ryan Day offense, it's not like Ryan Day was a bad play caller and then he handed it over to Chip Kelly. Ryan Day was a great play caller who really didn't want to have to hand it over, but knew he kind of had to because of everything that comes with being a head coach right now. And now that he's in this mode where he can really worry about ball and just kind of focus on ball and game planning, it gives me kind of confidence that, hey, Ryan Day just had 2 full weeks, and it's going to be probably closer to 3 by the time they kick off, of just ball knowledge, ball game planning, everything that comes with that. He hasn't had to worry about signing classes in the transfer portal quite yet. So it seems like the move that was always going to make the most sense.
Yeah, I think to what you were talking about, like what would Ohio State be doing if USF's head coach was Matt Patricia? Like who's calling plays for the defense? Like, is it still Matt? Because that's an interesting conversation, right? Like I think
side of the ball.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like I think it helps that you have Ryan as like your kind of plan B play caller, right? Who's obviously done this before. It's just, I said this in our video too. This was proactive, I think, by Ohio State too, to just rip the Band-Aid rather than let it fester and say, well, Brian's been calling plays all year. We've got to 12-1, blah, blah, blah. Like you don't want to get in a situation to where, you get through Miami. Let's say you win that game against Miami, and then all of a sudden you just burned a 3-week runway where you could have been, hey, Brian's going to work with the receivers this week. And, Keenan's going to still work with the tight ends. And we're going to go back to basically maybe what it was, prior to Chip Kelly's arrival. And this is kind of going to be what it is, where, every position coach has their thing and we're all going to collaborate on a game plan. And then Ryan Day's going to call plays. Like, yeah, you have time. They played on December 6th against Indiana, and they're going to play on December 31st against Miami. So you have significant runway. You have almost 4 weeks to where you can kind of implement this. Julian can have conversations with Ryan, maybe more play calling decisions. Like things can just be smoothed out a little bit. Whereas you don't want to put yourself in a position where, one, you lose and, you didn't feel like you were you don't want to lose and then feel like you weren't prepared, number one. But then two, even if you win and you feel like you need to make a change, I mean, not only do you have to deal with everything going on about the quick turnaround, you play December 31st and then you're going to go play January 8th against Georgia, who I don't think Georgia's got this going on. Georgia's got, the mentality of, we're going to go to the national championship game too, just like Ohio State. But Ohio State would have to be dealing with an offensive coordinator who's leaving and the transfer portal, just like Georgia, but they would have the offensive coordinator saying, I gotta make sure my team for next year's set. So I think it was a move that makes sense for the immediate future, and it was a move that makes sense for, if you win a game or 2 games, because that's just not a problem that you want to run into when there's not as much runway.
So I'm sitting here thinking of listening to you guys talk about this, and it's very, yeah, man, this was the right move to do. And I'm not saying it's the wrong move to do. I guess in short, in 5 words or less. Actually, no, not in 5 words. Yes or no, very quick yes or no. Stefan, do you think that Brian Hartline as an offensive coordinator was a failure?
No.
Okay. Andrew, do you think the Brian Hartline offensive coordinator experience was a failure?
Failure. No.
Okay. What word would you guys use to describe it?
Maybe incomplete.
Okay.
Unfulfilled.
Okay. How has this season impacted, if at all, how you view Brian Hartline as a college football coach?
I don't know how much it has affected necessarily my view of Hartline as much as like it's a reminder of no matter how successful you are at being a coach or an assistant, there's always steps to it, right? Like just because you're a great receivers coach doesn't mean automatically you're going to be a great offensive coordinator. Just because you're a great offensive coordinator doesn't mean you're automatically going to be a great head coach, right? Because I think there's probably parts early in Ryan Day's tenure where it's like, oh, this guy's an offensive mastermind. Okay, it doesn't mean that he was a great head coach. I think he's obviously turned out to be a great head coach, but there was things that he had to learn to get to the steps that he got to, right? So in terms of like Brian Hartline, the head coach, I think maybe it was just kind of a reminder of like, hey, he's gonna have to learn, and there's gonna be growing pains that come with this stuff.
Yeah, I think it definitely, changes maybe your thought process of like him as like a play caller and him as maybe like a leader in terms of like, not in like people don't believe in him, but it changes your kind of idea of like, what he can be or what he has to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think like something that I'm going to be very interested to look at next year is look, the recruiting background is what it is. He brings in these elite receivers. That's not changing. That hasn't changed. And I am wondering if the receiver fall off that maybe we've seen this year where there's questions about the depth has been because he hasn't been hands-on with those receivers, and he hasn't been coaching a guy like Mylan Graham every single day, maybe like he would have if he was just the receivers coach. Rather, now he's got to handle the offensive coordinator duties. I wonder if that's part of it, but I think it just goes to show that like you could be really good at one specific thing, but you cannot stretch yourself too thin, because I'm fascinated to see what they look like next year, because South Florida, they don't have the talent advantage that Ohio State does. And I don't even mean, and I mean that like relatively, right? Like you can't slow play it against Tulane, but that's what we saw from Brian Hartline this year about this idea of, hey, we're going to slow play it. We're going to try to win games a certain way. We're going to rely on our defense. We're going to boa constrictor these other teams. We're going to win by double digits, falling out of bed. Like that's what we'd seen from Brian Hartline. So it's like, I don't know if he'll adopt that same mentality going to South Florida, but I do think it definitely gives you maybe some unique perspective of like, okay, well, the receiver depth, play calling, they're questions that you maybe have now about what's going to happen at South Florida and where he's going to be able to devote his time to.
I'm going to ask a question.
Do you think he's going to succeed as a head coach, Andrew?
Define success at South Florida.
He turns it into a big boy job one day.
Then no.
Would you have thought that before this year?
Well, I think I thought, but before the year, I kind of thought, and I think we talked about it, like, I think we kind of operated under the assumption of like Hartline's probably got like 2-3 more years here.
Right.
So that I think we thought he was going to have a little bit more seasoning before he left.
But did you think that his compare where you thought his what you thought his trajectory was as a coach in general, then 12 months ago to now?
I thought his trajectory as a coach, I thought he was going to end up. I think it was foolish to say that he was just going to go take over Auburn like right away or something.
I'm talking long-term trajectory.
Long-term.
Just like what's his based on like what did you think his ceiling was as a coach as a college football coach in general was 12? If we were doing this podcast, people were hearing this on December 23rd, 2025. If people were hearing this on December 23rd, 2024, and I was asking you this question, what would you say his trajectory was?
Probably like low-level P4, high-level, like he can coach at like a G4 that's like, this is a playoff G4 team or G5 team. Like this is like a Tulane type of thing this year, okay. JMU. And then like the ceiling was that with like the knowledge of bare minimum, you are going to get a elite offensive coordinator and he's going to bring in some of the best receivers in college football. I think that was probably like what I looked at it as like, you know what? He could probably coach at like a Virginia Tech
But you don't think he's got like blue blood level ceiling?
I don't know if you're telling the truth there, Gillis. I think if we had asked you a year ago, because I think I would have said his trajectory suggests that he's going to be a head coach at a big school one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Maybe a little better than Virginia Tech. I'm trying to think because like it's hard to put myself in the mentality of a year ago. I don't know if I think that's probably fair. Maybe not like
a year ago, if I'd have said, "Hey, in 15 years, Brian Hartline's going to be the head coach at Ohio State," would your reaction have been like, "Yeah, that makes sense," or would you have been telling me I was crazy for saying that?
I mean, a month ago,
I would have said, yeah.
If Penn State had like seriously considered Brian Hartline, would you have been shocked?
No.
Now, yes. 12 months ago, no. And I don't know. This seems like this has been more difficult than maybe people anticipated it being, like all of this, because even he did some media down there when he was doing his introductory press conferences and whatnot, and he admitted that the week of the Big Ten championship game was very challenging for him trying to juggle all those different things. And I'm not saying it's not like this is our sports calendar is idiotic. It throws everything on top of each other, but he's not the only assistant in the college football playoff doing that, right? John Summerall was running two programs at the same time. And look, I mean, it's Tulane against Ole Miss. Of course they got beat. Bob Chesney was running two programs, and of course he got beat because it's James Madison. Okay, fine. So let's put it on the same level as Brian Hartline, where there was no conversations at Oregon about whether or not Will Stein was going to keep calling plays. He's calling plays for the rest of the college football play, and he's headed to a program on a higher level than Brian Hartline is. He's going to an SEC school. So he hasn't even
cooked. They had like 14 yards of play. Yeah,
sure, yeah, but that's because they played James Madison. But they're not going to do that. No, that's not. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking. There has been. It doesn't sound like, and you're reading things like there was any conversation about like I don't know. Is Will Cauley-Stein going to be able to handle both of these jobs?
It's not Cauley-Stein. It's just Stein.
I know it's going to be so much more confusing because I keep thinking of the center. Will Stein. There was no conversation of. It doesn't seem like that conversation is happening. Pete Thamel on December 1st reported that Will Stein was going to be the next head coach at Kentucky. Then he quote tweeted his own tweet and said he is expected to call Oregon's offense through the college football playoff. He'll juggle both jobs until Oregon's season ends. So if Oregon's season ends in the national championship, Will Stein is still going to be calling plays. He's still going to be pulling double duty. So everything we're talking about of, yeah, man, Brian Hartline is probably the best if he just has to worry a bit about the receivers, because that way he's not, trying to juggle putting together game plans to win national championships while also trying to put together a staff and a program at South Florida. He didn't have to be it's easier to focus because he has less responsibility now, and Ryan Day and yada, 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 yada. You just asked, Andrew, what if this was on the other side of the ball? What would they be doing? Oregon's doing it. Dan Lanning is a defensive guy. His offensive coordinator is leaving to take over an SEC program while also being his play caller and quarterbacks coach. So I said I wasn't going to yell, and here I am yelling. I think a year ago, if you would have told me that this is how the Brian Hartline era at Ohio State is ending, I think I'd be a little disappointed.
Isn't the Oregon thing an example, though, of why Ohio State would have Ryan Day calling plays? Like, if Matt Patricia left, I think Ryan Day would have more incentive to let Matt Patricia still keep calling plays. Whereas when it's your side of the ball, you're more likely to say, okay, it's fine, I can just do it. Because I remember, like, another name in the playoff, like, I remember when DeBoer left Indiana to be the head coach at Fresno State, and Tom Allen was a defensive coach, and it was like, yeah, he's calling plays for our offense in the bowl game. Like, I think you're more... Like, if Ryan Day was a defensive coach, then I think Brian Hartline might be calling plays for them. What did Oregon do? Was Lanning calling plays on defense? No,
they as I understand it, they kept the coordinators there, and it was a problem for one guy, and it wasn't a problem for the other guy.
That's interesting because Oregon's defense didn't look great.
No, it didn't. It didn't look great. I don't know. The conversation we're having, and maybe it's because we're in the bubble, because that's a good point, Stefan, is that it doesn't sound like Brian Hartline would have been able to handle it versus like, it's just because they're on opposite sides. It doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like last week was handled well in terms of time management and organization. Doesn't it feel like in terms of the way he called some games, it didn't always feel organized and managed well? Now, when it was on, right? I thought he called a really good game against Penn State. I thought he called a really good Michigan game. I don't know. I guess in hindsight, what do we think of the Texas game plan? I don't know. I guess that is what it is, but it was so up and down every single week with the play calling in terms of the organization, the plan, what you were trying to get done. And I wonder if that body of work, as much as it is about Ryan Day can do this, if Ryan Day thought Brian Hartline could handle both of these things, I think he would have let him handle it.
But let me ask you this, because that's why I use the word incomplete, because I'm just not sure what to make of it, just because so much of their offensive approach in the regular season looked experimental, and then it kind of again looked that way against Indiana, and it obviously left a lot to be desired. Yeah, let me ask two questions, both of you on a scale of 1 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State now with Ryan Day calling plays and having 3 weeks, here to prepare for the college football playoff. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that we see this offense foot on the pedal, like we've heard, unleashed, looking close to what it looked like last year's college football playoff? With Ryan Day calling plays, scale 1 to 10, how confident are you that they're going to flip the switch?
8.5 now that Ryan Day is officially calling plays.
Gillis?
And I would have been at like a 4.5 if it was Brian Hartline.
Okay, yeah. What about you, Gillis?
Oh, sorry.
That was going to be my second question, so that's fine.
Yeah.
If it was Brian Hartline, what would your confidence be?
Honestly, they're probably more similar than 8.5 and 4, maybe like 8 and 7. Like I still kind of believe they were gonna
That's my
unload.
point. That's my point, though. Is like you don't know what this was going to look like if it was still going to be
Right.
Hartline. So that's why I feel like it's incomplete. Because there's a chance that with Hartline they were about to flip the switch, and it was just a matter of getting to this point of the season.
And we get confirmation bias where they could go out to Miami and they put maybe like I'm not going to say an Oregon hurting on them like they did in the Rose Bowl last year, but I don't know. Maybe that game's 21-0 at halftime. Maybe it's like the Tennessee game, something like that.
Yeah.
And then it's like, see, Ryan Day took over and they were going to do this. Well, okay, that's totally fair, and everybody can heap praise on Ryan Day for calling a great game plan. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but there's also the possibility that when they got in the room, and they decided that was the best course of action, and Ryan Day said, this is what we're going to do. There's also the possibility that they were just going to do that with Hartline, because I don't think Hartline is the one standing up in the room going, no, we have to play slower. We have to play with 8 different tight ends on the field. I don't think their game plan would fundamentally change from Day to Hartline. I don't think it's like, oh, well, Hartline's gone. Now we can just completely change how we've been playing.
But he has been, though. He has.
Right. But is that Brian Hartline's directive, or is that a team directive? And that's my question.
He's calling. He's been calling it. So it's no different than the offense is the offense. It's what you decide to insinuate. It's what you decide to highlight, and that depends on what your personnel is. But then also who's calling the plays. That's why last year, those plays that Chip Kelly were calling last year, especially before the offensive line got hurt, those weren't new plays to Ohio State. They just had the personnel to execute those plays. Plus, Chip Kelly's good at the run game, which is why we were so excited about the run game pre-injuries last year. We can't, for starters, there's no proof of concept that Brian Hartline is going to do anything but what he's already done for 13 games. This is his sample size of what he was going to do as a play caller with this personnel, with this roster through 13 games. This is what it was. Now, granted, is it fair to be like, okay, did you maybe overdo it against Indiana and Michigan because you were trying to kind of supplement the fact that your 2 best weapons were healthy enough to play, but not healthy enough to be the full versions of themselves? Sure. But they didn't just pop out with I formation at the 35-yard line against Indiana and Michigan. They were doing that against Ohio. Nate Roberts played fullback against Texas. So Ryan Day has enough proof of concept. I've seen enough of what Ryan Day does as a play caller. It's not perfect either. This is not, Ryan Day is the greatest thing smoking and Brian Hartline sucks at this. No, Ryan Day has his flaws too. They run out of pistol extremely too much often when it's Ryan Day. And there is some similarity, but I've seen it. I've seen Ryan Day against Georgia. I've seen him against Clemson. I've seen when he is the guy who's got the controller in his hands, what the offense can look like over multiple years. I've seen 13 games of it with Brian Hartline. So yes, I am very confident in that idea of it's more likely to look a lot different than it did in the regular season when there is a different guy holding the controller. And he doesn't just have veto power. He's the one making the decision versus when someone else is. There's a way. Let's put it in video game terms. We all play video games. But we all play it differently. There's a way that you'll play college football 26 Gillis, a way I'm going to play it. There's a way that Stefan is going to play it. And we could all be playing with the same playbook, but we're going to call different things. And Ryan Day's better at it. because he's been doing it longer. So yeah, I'll give that grace. That do I think Brian Hartline would have gotten better at it over time? Sure, but he's a wide receiver coach by trade, and his wide receivers were not like the focal point of this offense. The tight ends were.
So I guess
incomplete probably is a good word, but for me, it's disappointing because it's disappointing because 12 months ago, we would have said that he is the one assistant coach that you can't lose on the staff. And right now, it feels like there is a part of the fan base who would just rather Ryan Day have pulled the Nick Saban what he did with Lane Kiffin and just send Brian Hartline on his way. This is a dude he's from Canton, Ohio. He played here. He's coached here. He has had a historical run, and it's just kind of ending. And it's like, it's ending with people kind of over it.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. But I guess, like, to play devil's advocate, though, like, Ryan Day was saying, like, the reason we're playing slower is because of this. And the reason we're putting all of these tight ends on the field.
I'm not talking about pace. I'm talking
I understand that. But, like, the reason we're putting all these tight ends on the field is because of this. And I guess my point would be, let's say Ryan Day was like, Ryan Day's in these meetings, obviously. He still said he's around. He still said he's in these meetings. Like, wouldn't Ryan Day have said something if he vehemently disagreed to that level? Like, wouldn't Ryan Day have been like, hey, like, Brian, I know what you're trying to do here, but no. Like, he's the boss. He's the boss. Like, here's how I think we should be running the offense.
Yeah.
Here's what I think we should be doing.
But yeah, and he's also explained to us what happens when they have those discussions. Ryan Day has veto power. Yeah. But also, his role as the head coach is to challenge his assistants.
Right.
And if they bark back and exude confidence in something, he's going to trust it. These are his words. So if Brian Hartline, it's his job to organize a practice plan for the offense, to organize a game plan. Yes, everybody else has input, but he has say. It's his show. And if he has, and in those conversations, exuded confidence in what they are calling, and they're winning football games, then Ryan Day's not going to veto it. He told us these things. This was before the season started. Ryan Day broke down how this works in terms of the dynamic between him and his assistant coaches. So yeah, I get it. Yeah, they played slow all year. They played slow last year. They didn't play 4 tight end sets. They weren't taking Emeka Ibuka off. They played 12 personnel last year too. They've been playing 12 personnel for like 3 or 4 years here. So this is the 12 personnel thing is not new, but they weren't playing a freshman tight end at fullback last year. This is equivalent to if you know how they did the T formation stuff last year on like the goal line. This is the equivalent of them doing T formation at like the 45-yard line on first down. We never saw that, did we? So we didn't have a problem with T formation. We have a problem with Nate Roberts playing fullback. We have a problem in the red zone with them taking Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate off the field. Do I think they would have switched some things up? Sure, maybe. I just don't have proof of that concept. I have proof of concept that Ryan Day can approach things differently. And also, he's just a better play caller because he's been doing it longer. So it's just, that's a long-winded way for me to just say, like, this is, again, 12 months ago, we'd have all been saying, like, yeah, Brian Hartline is the next best thing in coaching. He's going to be one of the hottest names. He's going to be to Ryan Day what Kirby Smart was to Nick Saban. Like, that's the type of trajectory we would have been saying 12 months ago. Kirby Smart didn't leave Nick Saban until the Georgia job opened up. Brent Venables didn't leave Dabo Sweeney until the Oklahoma job opened up. Brian Hartline's leaving for South Florida. 2 months ago, we were like, hey, is he going to be Penn State's next head coach? He's leaving for South Florida. And that's not the poo-poo on South Florida. It's just like,
they're not even they're not a P4. And I think if you would have,
let alone like a P4 who thinks that they should be winning national title, understand where we've gone in 2 months. In 60 days, we have gone from, is Brian Hartline going to take the Penn State job, to breaking news the morning of signing day. Breaking news: Brian Hartline's the next head coach of South Florida.
Yeah, like I think
you can't tell me that you thought this is how this was going to end.
Yeah,
with him taking the South Florida job.
If you were to say,
and him not looking like, for a dude who has been a lead at every part of being an assistant coach, he has been average at best at this part of the job, and now he's leaving for the South Florida job after 1 year of actually doing it.
Like,
and
if you were to
say, to me,
if you were to take a bet, like, you ever see those things on like DraftKings or FanDuel or whatever, where it's like, an either or bet, where it's like, it's like, I think they have one right now, like Ohio State or Indiana to win the national championship versus the field. P4 versus G5. what are you taking for Brian Hartline 12 months ago? You're taking P4 minus any number they give you. It could be minus 2,000. You're like, you know what? I'll guarantee myself money and I'll win that money. Because again, it doesn't have to be he goes to Penn State. You know what else is a P4? Like, I don't know,
Florida.
Arkansas. Forget the big, like, forget the big boys. Like, forget, like, he goes to, like, one of the massive programs. Mississippi State?
Yeah,
like
but,
a program like that, like, that's still a big program.
It is, but
that
that's
he's
not
taking
how
over.
we were talking about him. We
Sure.
were not talking about him taking
Right.
low-level P4 jobs. You said it, Stefan. Penn State's not low level. That's like championship level. Like Arkansas, Mississippi State, whatever. The Florida job was open. If we'd have said the Florida, we all could have predicted that Billy Napier was probably going to get fired this year. I don't know if we were having this conversation next year and like, hey, the Florida job is going to be open. Would it be crazy if Brian Hartline got that job? Nobody would have looked at anybody like they were stupid for saying that, just based on how we viewed him at that time. This is incomplete. Probably is the right word. It's a nice word, and it gets the point across. For me, it's like, man, like this great run is ending because the South Florida job came open. And it was a whelming at best experience with him as the play caller. And it took him 2 years to turn into the play caller because he got named the offensive coordinator in 2023. They let him call plays in the spring. It didn't look good, so Ryan Day kept it. And then Ryan Day brought in his mentor instead of giving the job to him because he needed to go win a natty.
So I have a question for both of you guys. I'll start with Stefan. Like, so Ryan Day's a play caller, and it helps that he's done this. It helps that he's an offensive guy. It helps that this is like, it's not new to him, right? You're not asking him to be the play caller of this for the first time. It's not like what's going on at Ole Miss where it's like, hey, you were the offensive coordinator, but you're not calling plays. Like, this is a problem, but who cares? I guess I'll ask you, scale of 1 to 10, what level of concern do you have that we're talking about, hey, this is going to look different now that Ryan Day's here? Was it going to look different? Was it going to look different in general? Who knows? But like, Ryan, like Steven was just making the point, like, this is going to look vastly different now because Ryan Day's calling plays. Like, what level of concern do you have that the level of difference from one being least concerned, like the difference is going to be in the first time that's going to happen is in the college football playoff?
First and foremost, I'm not saying it's like, I'm saying that if you tell me it's going to look vastly different, I'm more inclined to believe you because Ryan Day's the guy calling the plays. I don't actually know if it's going to look different. I think it is, but if someone tells me, hey, what we saw for 13 games, they're going to do less of that stuff that didn't work and more of the stuff that does work, I am more inclined to believe it because who the guy is that's actually calling plays now. Yeah. Versus I would believe it if Brian Hartline were still calling plays.
Yeah, you're more inclined to believe in change if there's change happening.
Yes. That's the point. Yes, that's it. So scale of 1 to 10. What are we
scale
scaling?
1 to 10, like, because there's this idea of Ohio State's offense could be changing. They're changing play callers. Like, they could be doing different things than they have done all year. And now they're doing it for the first time on a big stage where it's win or go home. What scale 1 to 10 scale of nerves about that entire process? And it could be 10. It could be like, people shouldn't worry. But that's why I wanted to ask it, where it's like, I'm not concerned at all.
I'd probably lean. So which number is less concerned?
Yeah, one is least concerned. I already said one is least concerned. Use your ears. Listen. One is least concerned. You're just zero, no concern, not at all worried. Everything's going to be fine. In fact, it's going to be way better.
I'd probably say
what was going on.
I'd probably say a 2, just because they have so much time to prepare it as well. Like if they played the week after Indiana and you were like, hey, by the way, Ryan Day's taking over play calling, I'd be like, that's a lot of things happening in a span of 6 days. With more time, I'm not too concerned.
Mine is 0 because the thing that they're going to change to do is give the ball to 4 and 17 and 86 more. Like that's the change is do the thing that we already know works. They're not going to pull something new out of a hat that we've never seen before. It's still the Ryan Day offense hasn't changed. It's just what you emphasize and what they have emphasized all season. I mean, you went 12-0, so we're like, again, we're nitpicking, but that's what happens when you cover a team who beats everybody like this. But like I have full faith that they are going to emphasize that if they emphasize the right thing, it is going to lead to success. And the right thing is whatever play calls emphasize putting Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and Max Klare and Brandon Ennis and Bo Jackson and Will Kazmarek in the positions to make plays. Whatever play calls that is from a playbook that's got probably 1,000 plays, if they emphasize the ones that get those players I named in positions to make success, I think Ohio State can have success and win a national championship. Does it guarantee it? No, there are some good defenses left on the board, and they're going to play a lot of them. But it increases their chances. If they keep emphasizing things that do not put those players in a position to make plays, I do not think they can win a national title. And I don't care how slow or fast they play while they do it. Whether you take 30 seconds off the play clock before you snap the ball or you snap the ball 5 seconds after the play clock starts, whatever ends the play with 4 and 17 touching the ball, cool with me. Throw the ball. It was 40 minutes, Brian Hartline, who, again, we didn't talk to today on Monday. On coordinator day, the only coordinator we didn't talk to, we talked to the head coach and we talked to Matt Patricia, but we did not talk to Brian Hartline. We have not talked to Brian Hartline since September, and he's the offensive coordinator of an offense with a Heisman Trophy finalist at quarterback and the best player in college football and one of the 4 best wide receivers in college football and an elite tight end and probably the best freshman running back in the country. And we have not talked to him since September. So we'll talk to him next week when we get down to Dallas and there's a media day. But it's just, that's even weird to me, man. He's done a whole, I don't know, the people who cover South Florida, and they've talked to Brian Hartline recently. They know what he's thinking. We don't, and it's fun. Let's take a break, and then we can talk about JJ here on Buckeye Talk. And we're back here on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means, Stefan Krajisnik, and Andrew Gillis. That was 40 minutes of me yelling about Brian Hartline. This is Stefan's fault, because I'm going to tell you why it's your fault. Because
whatever you're about to say is going to be wrong, but go ahead.
It is wrong, but it's not the point. I'm saying it anyway. We did 1 hour and 45 minutes on our 2 breakdowns of both sides of the ball. Those will be out Thursday and Friday. And multiple times throughout those, Stefan said, hey, you haven't yelled yet, but give it time. And I held off. And now here I am yelling again. I'm trying to be a better person in 2026, Stefan. I'm trying.
What's funny is the order of which people are listening, it went from you yelling to not yelling, but the order of us recording went from you not yelling to yelling.
Yeah, so I actually am becoming a better person.
Yeah, people as they're listening in real time are like, wow, Steven really got nicer on the holidays. It's like, no, actually, in terms of recording, the closer we got to Christmas, the worse he got.
I got angrier.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite, obey your thirst.
Okay, let's, I guess, very quick 3-minute take on the right guard situation. Actually, here's the question. What's the snap split? Percentage-wise, Gabe Van Sickle, Josh Petit.
I'll do out of like 60 snaps. I would say it's probably 40-20 Van Sickle. Because I think there's an element to Padilla of like still working his way back to game speed. So I think at least at the start you'll see more Gabe Van Sickle. I would maybe even lean toward like 45-15.
Yeah, I'm at 45-15. I was talking to somebody in the program over the summer, and they said when he puts it all together, he's going to play in the NFL for a long time. And that was about Gabe Van Sickle. So yeah, I think they will lean on Gabe Van Sickle. He will be the guy that you want to put in the lineup more because look, they're going to play on December 31st. If you can't get him ready for, a game with 3 weeks of runway, a whole season where he has played, you would think that this would be the time to where Gabe Van Sickle could jump in. And, obviously Integra's not going to be in the lineup there. That's a real add injury to insult situation where he's not going to play. So, I think this is probably what you want to be, but I don't know if as Carson Hinzman called him, sicko mode. If sicko mode goes out there and goes sicko mode and he looks really good in the first 2 drives, I would not shock me if we see one series from Josh Padilla and that's it. Like it would not stun me if they go, you know what, he's fine. We don't need to rotate. Because the whole reason we've been talking about a right guard rotation is because Tegra couldn't handle it. And Tegra couldn't be the guy for 60, 65 snaps. What if Gabe can't handle it for 65 snaps? Like what if he is that guy who can be that guy? So I will say that there's a rotation for now, but I think that there is a definite possibility that they just let Gabe run with it.
Yeah, the problem though is like you said, you need a rotation because Tegra wasn't necessarily good enough. What has Gabe done yet to make you say the same about him? You know?
Yeah, nothing. Like I brought this up before. Like the coach. Like I think this was like going like the UCLA Rutgers stretch where it's like these coaches see these guys every day. Like if Tegra really was just by far the worst option, they wouldn't keep putting him out there. Like if they thought that Josh Padilla was just whipping his butt in practice or whipping the defensive lineman's butt in practice, they would have played Padilla, and they didn't. So that's a totally fair point. So I think it's totally reasonable that they have a rotation. I also think it's totally reasonable that they're just like, you know what, we'll see how this goes, and we'll make our determination from there.
Well, because what I think is interesting too is it looked like it was gonna be Padilla, and then he got hurt. So I think that's an interesting element to this as well. Like if you 2 months ago, we weren't even talking about Gabe Van Sickle.
We were talking about Josh Padilla starting the Michigan game.
Yeah, but we've also reached the point where Josh Padilla's missed a lot of football, and it might just be better in this because you're trying to win for today, but you're also constantly planning for tomorrow. And if Carson Hinzman has a decision to make, and if he leaves, Josh Padilla should start in center next year. And it's like, okay, hey Josh, what if you just spent bowl practice getting ready to be our starting center in 2026 because Gabe Van Sickle was going to be playing to your right anyway, so just give him the spot. I think, and to the point about the nicknames, a lot of nicknames. You got Sicko Mode, Tegra is T. Grigg, Austin Serraveld, as Stefan wrote a couple months ago, he's Piggy. Julian Sayin is Big G.
Are we all coming for our job?
What do you think about Big J? Big J. And then Ethan Inyawa is Big E, which actually makes more sense because he actually is a big person. And then I'm not going to repeat what he said Luke Montgomery's name is because I knew what that was already, and it's not for these types of airways. But speaking of Luke Montgomery, I think Gabe Van Sickle's situation is going to look very similar to Luke's last year. In the first 2 games, except he's not going to have the extra home game. But Luke Montgomery played 31 snaps against Tennessee. Against Oregon, he played 29 snaps in a rotation. And then against Texas and Notre Dame, they stopped taking him off the field. He played 60 against Texas and 64 against Notre Dame. And I think we might see a similar situation with Gabe Van Sickle where it's like you don't want to throw him to the Wolves in his first start, essentially, especially with what Miami has up front. So you ease him in there. And so I think 40 to 60 might be fine. But then you get to Georgia, and it's like, all right, Gabe, you got your feet wet. Have fun. Here's 60 snaps for you. But I do think there's an element of this game of can he handle this level of workload? Because he's never had this many snaps before. So can he handle it? And I think the second half of the Indiana game, I actually think the offensive line was better because a lot of those sacks were in the first half. I think the Indiana game, Gabe Van Sickle showed he could do this. I think what he does against Miami will show if he can consistently do this while getting a starter level snap load. So that way, assuming they beat Miami, you get on the field with Georgia, you get on the field potentially with either Indiana, Texas Tech, or Oregon on the other side. Yes, I am purposefully leaving Alabama out of that mix. Then you know for the next 2 rounds after this that he is ready to be a full-time starter. And because I think that's what happened with Luke is Tennessee game, you threw him out there. Oregon game, you gave him a little bit more. They just blew them out, so you didn't need him for more than 29 snaps. And then Texas and Notre Dame, they just gave it to him. And look how it's paid off for him now. Like he's an all Big Ten level guard. Was he perfect this year? No. But he had like normal mistakes. Like nobody plays perfect on all 65, 70 snaps in the game, but he was a pretty good guard this year. So I think it's going to look a little bit similar to that.
The Subaru Share the Love event is on from November 20th to January 2nd. During this event, Subaru donates to charities like Make-A-Wish, helping grant more than 3,900 wishes so far. When you purchase or lease a new vehicle during the 2025 Subaru Share the Love event, Subaru and its retailers will make a minimum $300 donation to charity. Visit Subaru.com/share to learn more.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh Hilton stay, a holiday you're saving.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. This season, enjoy spacious, comfortable rooms and friendly service when you book with Hilton instead. Hilton for the stay.
JJ time. For the sake of this pod, I don't know if we need to hey, you're playing Miami. It's like, yeah, he's playing Miami. He's going to talk trash. He talks trash every single game. And then he took the humble route to his reaction to not winning the Biletnikoff Award, which Stefan is not very pleased with. But listen, it is what it is.
I get it.
Yeah, you do what you got to do. Let's see what he's like when he's away from the podium and he knows his coaches aren't watching.
But we saw it on Twitter.
That's true. In fact, that Twitter post is exactly why he answered the question the way he did. He called his injury. It's a strained quad, which I had been talking about for a while now. So we knew it was a quad injury the entire time. But I think the one thing that we didn't necessarily know as much about was, I think, Stefan, we spent a lot of November really worried about Carnell's long-term status, when, at least from a mental standpoint of where Jeremiah's mental health was, it seems like JJ was just as worried about his long-term status as Carnell was. And it you could almost see it up there as he was answering questions, how he's past it now, but that was a moment for him of frustration and kind of feeling like he was letting people down because he wasn't on the field at his best.
Yeah, and probably mixed with a little bit of fear, right? He talked about how this isn't something that he's dealt with before. He doesn't get hurt. And now all of a sudden, after spending the offseason talking about how you're going to beat Michigan, you almost weren't going to be able to play in that game. And that's a scary thing to deal with, right? When so much of your season is built around a moment, and you get to that moment and you might not be able to, be out there helping your team, right? And Ryan Day had a great line where he was like, yeah, we told him, we're going to win the Michigan game with or without you, but we would really be happy if you played in that game. So yeah, it was a tough thing for him to deal with. And I think probably maybe this is our fault in the media of pain tolerance was used a lot to describe it. And maybe that kind of undersells, kind of exactly what it is, right? Because pain tolerance sounds all right, suck it up, you'll be fine. It's well, there's more to it than that.
Yeah, you're right. But also, I think he kind of approached it that way. As he was walking away, hey, man, do you regret playing that UCLA game where he played 22 snaps? Because he genuinely felt like he was fine. He had gone through practice. We saw him, Stefan, having conversations with multiple coaches, almost making his case for why he should play in this game. And then he gets to halftime and he's limping all over the place and he's telling the coaching staff, I can't do this anymore. So you're right. There's more to it than just a pain tolerance standpoint. But I think we simplified it so much because it almost felt like the way he approached it for a while, he was trying to simplify it to I can fight through this. And it's no, sometimes you do need to just sit down and let something heal.
Yeah. And he talked about it being a 3 to 4 week thing. And he actually, all he did was miss a game and a half. Right. And what's funny too is the little bit he played against UCLA, he looked really good. He came back and played against Michigan, looked really good. He looked pretty good against Indiana and kind of did his part. So yeah, for a guy that was supposed to be out 3 to 4 weeks, he ended up playing a whole lot of football. And I think that's maybe a scary thought going into this of, originally you see the matchup, you're oh, they're about to face a motivated JJ. It's I don't know, what if they just have to face a healthy JJ? Maybe the motivation part doesn't really matter that much. Maybe he's just going to go out and do, because also I don't know, you don't think he was motivated week 1 against Texas? It's not like he necessarily lit the world on fire, right? So it's have him be healthy and the motivation will come there, right? It's college football playoff. I don't think being motivated is too much of a problem. So yeah, that's the biggest thing from it was we learned exactly what he dealt with, but we also learned that he's now feeling 100% going into college football playoff. And that's a massive boost, right? You'll see the joke a lot in pro sports, especially where it's a GM will be kind of lazy and not make a move, but he gets a big player back from injury. He's well, that's just as good as making a transaction at the deadline. It's no, you just didn't really make any good trades, but you got bailed out by this guy coming back healthy. Ohio State, you can't obviously make trades in college football, or at least that's what the rules continue to say. We'll see what happens. But Ohio State's getting a healthy JJ in the December trade deadline. So that's pretty good for Ohio State.
I rebuke the idea of a trade deadline in college football. I wouldn't be able to handle all that. He had 8 catches for 144 yards in the Big Ten championship game while trying to limp around on a messed up quad. This dude's insane. I don't know, Gillis, what's scarier? The fact that Jeremiah Smith is healthy or the fact that he's angry?
Healthy. Because I don't think there's ever a lack of motivation. So like Stefan was saying, like, hey, I don't know, he's pretty angry for the Texas game because he was like, hey, they're talking all this smack because I only had one catch for 3 yards against him. And he had like 2 or 3 drops in that game, and he didn't look great. So it's like, I don't know, you can play angry, and I feel like there's always been a reason for him to have a chip on his shoulder. So it's like, I don't know, that just kind of comes with the territory. So I think it's health, because you could be pissed and you could be angry and you could be the Incredible Hulk, and teammates could be having to restrain him in the locker room from just running out onto the field 20 minutes before kickoff. He could be so ready to go. But if his quad or his hamstring or his foot or his ankle or his shoulder or whatever says, I'm not ready to play, he's not ready to play. So, yeah, to me, it's like he could have been the most pissed off person in the world, the highest level of pistivity that you could have found. And if his quad's not healthy, it doesn't matter. So, yeah, Jeremiah being healthy is just terrifying in its own.
I think the angry part is more scary for me because one of them, he was going to get healthy, right? Nobody's body stays broken forever. Right? He eventually was going to heal itself. So that's just nature. The anger is man-made, right? So it's just like, oh, just wait till I get healthy. Okay, yeah. But I think him being angry because they didn't give him an award that he clearly should have won, and more importantly than the award, because that's personal reasons, they lost, and he doesn't seem to handle losing very well. Last year, coming off of losses, he had 3 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown against Nebraska. And then he had 6 for 103 and 2 scores against Tennessee coming off the second loss. So I think the combination of he didn't win the Biletnikoff and they lost their last football game. Oh, yeah. And he's playing a lot of kids he grew up with, a lot of which have probably been giving him flack because he didn't choose to go to Miami. Him being healthy just means he gets to maximize on his anger. And I'm always here for angry JJ.
I mean, he was pissed off last year. Do you remember last year when we did this exact press conference? Or no, it was the Tennessee one technically. But we did like the exact same thing. Yeah. And he gets in there and he goes, I guess you can't be physical in football anymore. I guess I'll have to show people that you can. It's like, and then he had the line where he's just like, they could have the whole team on me and I think I'm open. So it's like, he's always had that level of like, but I got to prove people wrong.
He was dealing with a quad thing last year too.
And here he is, healthy.
Right. But he was angry last year. So him not being healthy didn't matter because he was angry. I like angry JJ. Am I wrong for liking angry JJ?
Nothing wrong with that.
All right. Because, he's a nice kid. But when he's angry, he goes, I thought his podium was the most informative podium we have had all year. Is that fair to say? Like, I learned more in the 10 minutes he was up there. I think the only one that comes close to that is when Ryan Day went up there and said, I'm not talking about the Michigan stuff, but I will give you the starting quarterback. I liked it. Anything else? We're under an hour, and I'd like to keep it that way.
The anger thing is funny, too, because it's like, I think he's angry that they are coming off a loss. I don't know if, do you think he's angry at Miami or just motivated to play Miami? Because he's the one who picked Ohio State over Miami.
Is Miami angrier at him, or is he angry at Miami?
I'll say this. Motivated for Miami, but he's already angry.
Yeah.
So you're just fueling anger.
There was that one tweet that might have made him angry where it was like, our boys are putting on for the city while you're up in Columbus.
Yeah, Miami fans are letting that kid have it right now. Listen, man.
Maybe he is angry. Maybe he is angry about Miami now. Also, like, if there's anything I trust in this world, it's that college football or players will find ways to be angry or motivated wherever they can get it.
I tweeted this out. It's my best football take I've ever had. I tweeted this out when I was covering the Bengals. I said, like, I think 75% of football is just figuring out how you're the most disrespected team or player in the entire league. Like, Ruben Bain was talking about like the Texas A&M like offensive lineman. I watched that interview. He was like, yeah, I haven't really gotten into the film, but I don't think there'll be a problem for our line and whatever. And he's like saying something I can't repeat on the podcast and on Instagram Live immediately after the game, talking about how much of bums they were and whatever. Wow. And it's like, I don't know. It feels like Austin Saraville could get to the podium and be like, yeah, he's a great player and he's a great competitor and he's gonna be a top 10 NFL draft pick, and Ruben Bain's gonna have it written down. He doesn't think I'm a top 5 NFL draft pick. Everybody just looks for motivation.
Never forget Kirby Smart as their team is going back to back is like, you guys said we were gonna win 8 games. It's like Kirby Smart. That is not what anybody said.
First of all, Kirby Smart's just lying. Nobody said that.
Yeah.
I'll throw Ruben Bain some grace because that offensive lineman was kind of insinuating things. Like he was trying to play up the moment a little bit. So I'll give Bain some grace. I like angry athletes who can then apply that anger towards something productive. Yeah, because like everybody can get angry, but not every. It's like playing mad. Everybody's not good when it comes to playing mad. Some people they get better, some people stay the same, and some people get worse.
I mean, Jeremiah admitted early in the season he felt like he was kind of letting some of that get in the way.
Yeah.
For him. And I'm not saying just like the internal dialogue going into Texas, but like it's clear that he was angry about how often he was getting the ball or lack thereof, and all this and that. It's like you got to know how to channel that stuff correctly. And even he has admitted to like that's not an easy thing to do. That's fine. I mean, we've all been angry before. It's hard to channel it the right way.
Right. I mean, we're already ready to throw him at a table with Jerry Rice and Randy Moss, and it's like we have unrealistic expectations for him. And yet his are still like we're not even close to what his are. And so I remember talking with him about that in the preseason of like, hey, can you want something too much? And I think he's young, so he's still like learning that. Like he was frustrated about the Cotton Bowl last year, but they still won the football game, right? That's the thing about the Michigan game last year is they lost the football game and he didn't get the ball. And how athletes do that a lot is like, we win, I don't get the ball. I'm annoyed, but it's whatever. We win and I get the ball. I'm as happy as I can be. We lose and I get the ball. Not great. I got mine, but like we didn't win, so it doesn't matter. We lose and I don't get the ball. Yo, Brian, Keenan, Ryan, what are we doing? Which is why when he's like, yeah, I asked Brian Hartline to challenge me last year. You said, Brian, throw me the freaking ball and we will win a ring. And if you don't, we're not going to win a ring. And then they said, okay, and they won a ring. And thus, the T-shirts were born. 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. This is the Throw the Ball podcast, masquerading as the Buckeye Talk podcast. Ohio State versus Miami on December 3rd. That's the offensive side. We also did talk with Matt Patricia and a group of defensive players, Monday evening. That'll be the Tuesday pod. No, that'll be the Wednesday pod. I'm not great with days. And then it'll be Christmas, and you'll start getting into the deep dives and all those things. And before you know it, you'll blink, and we'll be in Dallas getting ready to watch Ohio State and Miami play in the Cotton Bowl for a chance to get to the college football playoff semifinal, where the theme is just get us to Camelback. That's all we want. That's all we want in our life. These two, I've been talking about Camelback, the hotel that the media stays at, and the Fiesta Bowl, to these two for 2 years, and they finally are so close to seeing it. And I hope I haven't been overselling Camelback to you guys.
I did walk into the media room the other day and I did say the way that people talk about it makes me think it's the Garden of Eden. So
it's
the bar is high.
I know it's okay. I know, and I'm glad you say that because then I like try to center it a little bit. Camelback is the best of the media hotels from the New Year's Six bowls.
Yes,
that I have been to, and I've been to obviously the Rose Bowl, Cotton Bowl. Peach Bowl. I mean, you guys have been to the Peach Bowl when we were in Atlanta last year. Miami's, the Orange Bowl one. I think that's all of them I've been to. And it's the best of the New Year's Six bowls. I mean, you can look it up. It's on the Marriott website.
Listen,
you can go look up the JW for yourself.
The discussion here centers around a hotel in Arizona in January. I'm not going to complain. I promise I will not complain.
That's a good point. Well, no, I mean, in 2019,
and we'd be like, that could be worse.
I will say, though, in 2019, the weather followed us from the Midwest, and it kind of sucked.
Holy crap. Like there was like a brief moment where like people were talking about the game and the Cotton Bowl being postponed.
Oh, because no. Last year that was crazy. I'm talking about when we went to the Fiesta Bowl in 2019. It was like 55 degrees in Ohio around that time. It was just like really warm in December, and that weather followed us. And I remember J.K. Dobbins talking about, yeah, man, I was excited to come back to the Southwest, and this freaking weather came with us, man. So hopefully that hadn't happened. But 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial. $3.99 after that. For Stefan, Krajisnik, and Andrew Gillis, I'm Stephen Means. Talk to you guys later.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Wishing you a very happy half-off holiday because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day, yeah?
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.